Welcome everyone to the 14th episode of Italian Politician of the Week. This episode will be a bit different, as in we won't have one but two politicians to cover this week. At this point you may be wondering why. Well, if you were in my Discord, you would know that a few months ago I made a promise to one of my mods, Tamak, that I would make a video about Tuscany for his birthday. So here it is. Except that today it's not his birthday, it was actually 2 months ago. So yeah, anyway, I decided I would talk about the regional elections in Tuscany that took place just on the 20th of September this year and the background that comes with it. So yeah, sit tight, relax and enjoy. Whenever I talk about presidents, mayor, governors, assessors, ministers or whatever here in Italy, I always forget that most of you foreigners have no idea how Italian institutions work. So let me fill you in with regional governments in a nutshell. Regional governments here in Italy are very straightforward. Basically, a president is elected if he or she manages to get the majority of the votes in an election. The president will then choose the members of the regional junta, which is made out of the assessors who can be in charge of the infrastructure, tourism, healthcare, etc. Alongside the president and the junta, who hold the executive power in the region, there is the regional council, the holders of the legislative power. The seats are distributed proportionally to the number of votes each party gets, though the winning party or coalition also gets some extra seats to reach at least 55% of the seats. Regions have elections every 5 years, except if the president decides to dismiss the council or if the president is removed or resigns. Regional governments here in Italy do not have a lot of power outside of their own regional borders, and since Italy does not run a federal system, the regional president is just little more than an administrative entity that helps the central government by handling local issues. There are 5 regions, namely Sicily, Sardinia, Friuli Venezia Giulia, Trentino Alto Adige and Aosta. The latter 3 enjoy more autonomy because they are composed largely by linguistic minorities like Slovenians, Germans and Frenchmen. The other 2, as in Sardinia and Sicily, they get more autonomy because they are islands and so they have to be more self-sufficient. As for the other regions, they have some degree of autonomy in many fields such as the field of law, finance and transportation. While being the president of an Italian region may not be as powerful of a position than running an American state or a German one, it is something prestigious nonetheless, especially if we are talking about a flashy region such as Tuscany. Tuscany is arguably one of the most internationally recognized regions in Italy, due to its rich historical landmarks from basically every historical era such as the Etruscan times, the Renaissance, late Middle Ages and Napoleonic times. Tourism is a big deal, but also agriculture is very profitable due to the fertility of the soil. Metalworking industries are also very strong thanks to the abundance of metal deposits in the east. What we have here is a region whose GDP has been growing for many years, and throughout most of its existence it has been ruled by left-leaning presidents. In fact, it has always been one of the regional trophies of the Democratic Party and the Communist Party before them, alongside Emilia-Romagna and until recently Marche and Umbria. The right-wing coalition led by Matteo Salvini, Giorgia Meloni and Silvio Berlusconi since 2018 has made it their mission to place a strong candidate to these elections and break what people here like to call the red zone. In Umbria, Salvini supported Donatella Tesei, a senator with very conservative values, especially on the topic of abortions. Meanwhile, Meloni endorsed Francesco Acquaroli, the controversial member of the Chamber of Deputies who once took part to a dinner party to celebrate Mussolini's march to Rome. They both won. This forced Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany into the position of gatekeepers of the red zone. In January 2020, President Stefano Bonaccini from the Democratic Party was able to narrowly beat Senator Lucia Borgonzoni from Lega and to reconfirm his second term as president. The region was safe, although many attributed the Democratic Party's victory to the weakness of Borgonzoni rather than Bonaccini's strengths. In fact, Borgonzoni clearly hid behind Salvini's shadow, while Bonaccini did little to no campaign at all. I'm not going to focus anymore on this, but I intend to go deeper into the topic eventually. This brings us to Tuscany. After the Pyrrhic victory in Emilia-Romagna, people did not know what to think of the elections. Enrico Rossi, the president of Tuscany, refused to run for a third term and instead went back to the origins and became assessor in the small town of Signa. Honestly, he's pretty wholesome. He was highly appreciated in Tuscany. At the previous election, he got twice as many votes of his opponent. Several people decided to run for president this year. Among them was Tiziana Vigni, a Novax Karen. 3 communists named Marco Barzanti, Salvatore Catello and Tommaso Fattori also candidated themselves in different parties. Finally, Irene Galietti from the Five Star Movement also joined, though these were minor characters. They barely represent 10% of the votes if you sum them up together. In fact, I am going to focus on 2 specific candidates today, Eugenio Giani from the Democratic Party and Susanna Ceccardi from Lega. I want to start from Ceccardi because she was the person that made the election so interesting and tense in the first place. Ceccardi was the former mayor of Cascina and a member of the European Parliament for Lega. She has very strong opinions on Italian nationalism and illegal immigration. Just to give you an idea, she named her first daughter Kinzica after Kinzica Dismondi, a female warrior that fought against the Saracens when they attacked Pisa in the 11th century. At first, people just assumed she would be another Borgonzoni, but she turned out a way stronger opponent. She was very charismatic and surprisingly well educated on European law and history. She made the campaign mostly on her own, even though Salvini would join her often just to give her a thumb of approval. But most importantly, she had a very interesting plan for Toscana. Her most important points were the following: to reduce taxes for businesses, to introduce more laws for the protection of the environment, to reform the healthcare system, and last but not least, to fight against organized crime. These messages resonated with many people that were afraid of the repercussions of the current historical events. Next, we have Eugenio Giani. He has a degree in law, but he also holds a great interest in medieval history and literature. In fact, he also wrote some books on the topic. In the past 20 years, he was part of the city council of Florence and in the regional one. He was also the assessor for sports during Rossi's term. As you might expect, he was the candidate proposed by Rossi himself, and they have a lot in common. He is also very wholesome and takes many social issues at heart. In fact, his plan included the expansion of social rights in the region, as well as building new public projects and to improve the school system. Of course, he also talked about financial aid to the people to get through the pandemic, but he was not as focused on businesses as Ceccardi was. An important thing I forgot to mention about Tuscany is the fact that it is very friendly towards people with alternative sexual orientations. In fact, it is the only place in Italy where sex change operations are covered by the state healthcare plan. So essentially people can do it for free. Gianni had no intention to slow down the social progress and planned to move forward Rossini's legacy. Ceccardi, on the other hand, had another direction in mind for Tuscany, perhaps something closer to what her colleagues are doing in Lombardy and Veneto. So overall, both of these candidates had very solid agendas, and most importantly, they both seemed worthy to the position, since both had at least some experience in administration and had the interest of Tuscany at heart. Now, all of you may be wondering at this point, who won? Well, after a long and suspenseful wait, Ceccardi won a seat to the regional council as Gianni became president. Ceccardi took the results well, and instead of going back to Brussels, she remained in Tuscany to try and leave a mark on the region anyway by representing the opposition in the regional council. As for Gianni, he seems to be handling the second wave pretty well. He did not have a lot of time to do much since he has been president for just 2 months, but he's doing alright. It is rare these days to have an election that doesn't escalate into a polarizing shit show. Honestly, I am marveled by the way both candidates handled their own campaigns. They were civil, but also tenacious. A good example of how elections should go. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. See ya!